Today we're going to talk about moving from the dantian. Moving from the dantian is one of the basic underlying principles, and it's really one of the critical principles to help you be more balanced and to be more stable. Of course, the other underlying principles play into it as well, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But I want to focus in on the idea of the dantian being the center of your mass. Think about the dantian as 2 inches in from the belly button, 2 inches down. It really is the center of your mass. And what's important in stability, in being balanced, is that center of mass is over your base of support. So let's think about it. If I stand with my feet about shoulder width apart, I have a two-legged base right here. My dantian can be right in the center. Okay, I am centered over my base of support. If, however, I want to be one-legged, I have to move my center of mass over that one leg, because if I don't, I'm not going to be able to stand on one leg. Think about it for a second. Try to do pheasant stands without moving that center of mass. Okay, you have a two-legged and you want to do pheasant stands, you can't do it. Okay, it doesn't happen. You actually have to move your center of mass, your dantian, over this base of support for you to be able to come into your pheasant stands. Of course, you're also thinking about your columns, thinking about keeping your shoulders over your hips, thinking about making sure you're rooted all the way through that column, allowing this supporting leg to be slightly bent. That rooted and grounded columns, the idea of substantial and insubstantial, bringing your weight all the way over to one side, allowing one leg to be 100% empty. That all comes into play. But none of that can happen unless you move that center of mass over your base of support and come into your pheasant stance. Just try that a couple times. Now moving that center of mass over your base of support to the other side, pheasant stands. Thinking about it in terms of how can I be the most stable? Now, there are a couple of things that you can practice just thinking about, okay, where is my center of mass? What am I doing? Of course, you can do pheasant stands. That's a great exercise. But there are a couple other things you can do. You can also do something like this, where you come forward in a lunge, and then you come back, lift, and then you go back, and standing up and coming forward. Now, if you do it slowly enough, it's going to force you to be stable, thinking about keeping this dantian on this side of your body. If you try to lean one way or the other, or break your columns, take that center of mass out of the way, then you're not going to be stable. You also don't want to just do it so fast that momentum is keeping you balanced. Don't do that. There's another exercise that you can use anything in your house. I don't suppose that a lot of you have an orange cone like this hanging around in your house. But if you do, use that. If you don't, just use something that's about 4 to 5 inches tall that you actually have to lift your leg to step over. Now think about your column. Let it be rooted and grounded. Let this leg be 100% empty, the one that's going to step over. Now think about keeping this dantian over this center of mass, over this base of support. You're just simply going to step and tap. Now notice my dantian is staying over here. I'm not switching my weight. I'm not stepping over and transferring my weight. If you put your hand right about underneath your belly button, you'll be able to tell if you're keeping your dantian over that base of support. It's a very simple exercise, but it's also very tempting just to even do that much. And if you do that much, that's actually going to take you out of balance. So practicing obviously on both sides of the body, being able to just tap without transferring your weight. Get rid of my cone now. So when we're talking about stability, balance, moving from the dantian, keeping that dantian over our base of support, we obviously have to think about our columns, being rooted and grounded, thinking about substantial and insubstantial. You also have to think about rotation. In regular walking, you are actually, your pelvis, your body, your upper body is actually rotating when you walk. Now, I'm going to exaggerate it a little bit here. I don't actually walk like this. But your body is naturally rotating like this. If you don't rotate, your body has to figure out how to bring that center of mass over the base of support. And what happens with people that don't rotate is they weeble wobble like this. You can see that that's bringing my dantian over that base of support instead of by rotating. We can help our bodies maintain that rotation by exaggerating our chi walking and really focusing on that rotation as we do the chi walking. So I'm going to step back this way. I'm going to step forward with my left. I'm going to put my hands on my dantian. Now think about, as I turn, I'm going to bring that dantian over the base of support. I'm going to let this leg be completely empty. Then I'm going to step forward, rocking back, and then I'm going to turn. And I'm going to focus on not stepping until I know that my dantian is over my base of support. So it's an exaggerated chi walking, but it will help you focus on where is my dantian? Am I rotating as I walk? Do I feel stable? You can do the same kind of idea with part the wild horse's mane. I'm actually going to face the mirror this time. Bring your weight over to the right, holding the ball. Now my weight is on the right. That means I need to rotate to bring that dantian over this right column. So now as I step out with my part the wild horse's mane, I rotate because my weight is coming forward onto that left side. Then as I rock back, just like my chi walking, I have to let that dantian come over this left leg now before I can step right and rotate into that part the wild horse's mane. So thinking about where is my dantian before I step, am I stable? You can see I'm completely stable at this point. I don't have to fall forward. I'm rooted and grounded. I know where my weight is. I know where my dantian is. And moving that slowly, practicing those movements that slowly actually helps you focus in on your belly button, focus on your dantian. Now there's a couple movements that confound people a little bit, especially with columns and thinking about how do I move with these with ease and grace. And of course, the first one is snake creeps, right? Snake creeps, pheasant stands. If you bring your weight over to this right side, notice that I'm slightly turned. I have my hand in a bird's beak. I want to step out with my snake creeps. Now, if when I step out, I transfer my weight, think about that cone we were just using. If I transfer my weight, okay, I'm not actually, I'm ready to do pheasant stands, but I haven't done my snake creeps yet. So the key to this is thinking about stepping over that cone. Don't put your weight here until you lower that center of gravity. Your dantian should be over this right base of support until you start to turn. Then it comes over that left, letting your right leg become empty. So now this dantian, this is all stable. This is rooted and grounded. I can easily pull that knee up into pheasant stands. So thinking about that again, your weight is on your right. As you start your snake creeps, you're just lowering your center of gravity. That dantian stays over this right side. Then as the snake creeps, that's when you start to turn, bringing your weight over this front leg so that you can easily come into your pheasant stance. Pick the needle up from the C bottom is another one that people don't think about their dantian. They're thinking about picking something up off the ground, right? And what happens is they do this. And we all know that that's not correct. This isn't balanced. This isn't stable. You're about to fall. The correct way to do pick the needle up from the C bottom is to keep your weight back on this right leg. I'm going to turn this direction. This weight is back on the right. This left leg is actually empty, and it needs to stay as empty as possible. When you pick the needle up from the C bottom, you're actually moving from the dantian to push it back over this base of support, this right leg, picking the needle up from the C bottom. Then as you fan through the back, then that dantian can come forward onto the left. Practice doing your pick the needle up, thinking about not your hands. Think about, where is my dantian? Am I pushing it back over this right leg so that I'm stable? And that actually helps me maintain my columns, because what I've done now is I have that column going straight down that is rooted and grounded. Doesn't matter that I look like I'm breaking those columns. If you think about my shoulder to my hip is in harmony with my hip still. If you think of a line going straight down through my body, the dantian is over the base of support. I am actually in a very stable position as I do pick the needle up from the C bottom. So we're going to try something. We're going to do the 8 form. And if you don't actually stand up and do this with me, it's going to be a little odd. You need to actually experience this. So don't just sit in your chair and watch me while we do this. Stand up and do it with me. Because what we're going to do is that simplified 8 form, but we're not going to use our hands. So if you think about, just put your hands on your dantian. And from this point, we're not going to use the hands. Let your knees be soft. Think about being rooted and grounded. Feel those columns. Take a nice deep breath in. Breathe it out and sink just a little bit. Now, thinking about this left side being empty, you have to move that dantian slightly over the right to open. And then you center yourself. Remember, in a two-legged stance, the dantian can be right in the middle. Preparation, we lower that center of gravity, breathing in and then breathing out. Now, the first move is repulse the monkey, but we don't move our feet. So we just use that rotation. Let that right hand come up and over, rotating. This rotation is what's leading the arms. Your dantian moving is what's really happening there. Now, bringing your weight, your dantian over your right, because you're going to step out left with brush knee. Let that dantian move. Now you have to bring this left leg back. So you have to bring the weight back, substantial and insubstantial, but you also have to turn, letting this dantian come over this base of support. Then bring your weight over to the left, stepping out right, brush knee. Again, you have to bring that weight back, bring it to your left, stepping back. Now you have to do the same thing with part the wild horse's mane. Stepping out, moving from your dantian. If you find yourself stepping out and just going forward with your part the wild horse's mane, you might feel stable here, but this is not what you need to be doing. Your dantian needs to be rotating over that left side. Then part the wild horse's mane. Then as you come back, your next move is wave hands like clouds. You're going to step left. So you have to rotate to the right to step left. Then that rotation has to come all the way to the left so that the right leg can step in. Rotating so the left leg can step out. Now remember, you want to go back right. So now you're going to rotate to the right, bringing that left leg in, stepping out right. Now you want to lift your right leg into pheasant stance. So your dantian needs to come over your left, lifting into pheasant stance. Then the dantian comes slightly over the right, pheasant stance. Over to the left, lift and kick. Over to the right, lift and kick. Now you're going to do your ward off sequence, stepping out right. Let that dantian move and rotate, grasp the bird's tail. Now as you roll back, your base of support is now on that left, so your dantian has to move left as you roll back. Then as you rotate and press, it's forward on the right. Then as you come back with your pushing chi and forward. Now you have to bring that weight back, so bring your dantian over your left, step back with the right, bring it over the right, step out, ward off. Grasp the bird's tail, roll back, rotate and press, pushing chi. Bring all the weight onto that left, because now we're going to return the tiger to the mountain. Stepping out, rotating here, centering, bringing it all the way over to the left, letting that right leg slide in, and then close. So practice that without using your hands. Put your hands on your dantian, and you're going to feel how that whole idea of bringing my center of mass over my base of support, along with understanding substantial and insubstantial, along with understanding columns, being rooted and grounded, and rotation, how all of these things put together help make your movement more stable, more balanced. You're able to move with more grace and ease. It is a great way, if you're an instructor, it's a great class to do with your students, because their brains will be on fire of, oh my gosh, I just really experienced stability and I wasn't even doing Tai Chi like I normally do. So let's